My name is Matthew. I never thought of basements as scary places. Growing up, our basement was just a cluttered storage space, boxes filled with Christmas decorations, old furniture, things nobody wanted but couldn't throw away. So when I moved into my new house and saw that it had a large basement, I barely gave it a second thought. I should have. The first few days were uneventful. I moved in, unpacked, and started settling into my new routine. But on the first night, something strange happened. I was lying in bed when I heard a dull thud from below, like something falling over in the basement. I figured I had stacked a box. Wrong. So I went downstairs to check. The basement was silent when I got there. Nothing had fallen. Nothing was out of place. But when I turned to go back upstairs, saw something that made my stomach drop. There was a door I hadn't noticed before. It was on the farthest wall, hidden behind a shelf. A door that shouldn't be there. It was old, much older than the rest of the house. The wood was dark, almost black, with deep scratch marks along the edges. It had a handle, but no keyhole. I reached for it. The moment my fingers touched the handle, a wave of nausea hit me. A sharp, suffocating pressure in my chest, like the air had been sucked out of the room. I let go. The feeling disappeared. I backed away, my pulse hammering. I didn't sleep that night. The voice over the next few days, I tried to ignore the door. I even considered nailing it shut. But every night, at exactly 3:15 a.m., I would hear it. A voice, not loud, not clear, just a whisper, coming from behind the door. At first, I told myself it was the pipes or the wind, but then the whispers turned into knocking, soft, insistent, like something trapped, like something that knew I was listening. One night I finally worked up the courage to speak. "Who's there?" I whispered. Silence. Then, just when I thought I imagined it, a voice, my voice, whispered back, "Let me out." I ran. The wrong basement. That was the night I decided to leave. I packed my bags, ready to abandon the house for good. But when I reached the front door, something wasn't right. The hallway looked wrong. The walls were too close together, the ceiling too low, the air too thick. I turned back toward the living room. It was gone. Instead, in every direction, concrete walls, shelves, boxes. I was in the basement. My heart slammed against my ribs. I had just been upstairs. How then? I saw the door, the black door. Only now, it was open, and standing just beyond it, in the impossible darkness, was someone who looked exactly like me. Smiling, he reached out a hand. "You finally let me out, Maui. Don't know how long I've been here. There's no way out. No stairs, no windows. Just concrete walls and the black door. And sometimes, when I press my ear against it, I can hear him. Living my life, answering my phone, going to work, laughing with my friends. No one knows I'm gone, and no one ever will. Because now, I'm the one trapped in the basement, waiting for someone else to open the door." My name is Daniel. When I moved into my grandmother's old house, I expected it to feel empty. She had passed away months ago, leaving the house to me in her will. It was a big place, too big for one person, but it was free, and I wasn't about to turn down a free home. The only part of the house that truly unsettled me was the basement. Not because it was dark or old, not because of the smell of damp wood, but because, every night, I heard something moving inside the walls. I told myself, it was just the house settling. Maybe mice, maybe pipes. But deep down, I knew something was inside the walls, and it was watching me. The first time I saw it, I was doing laundry. The washing machine was old, shaking slightly as it ran, filling the basement with a low hum. That's when I noticed a crack in the cement wall. Thin, jagged, just big enough to see through. I don't know why I leaned in, but when I did, something moved. just a shadow, barely visible in the darkness beyond the wall. Then, a single eye opened. I stumbled back, heart pounding. I stared at the crack for a long time, waiting for it to happen again, but nothing moved. Not until I turned away and heard the sound of fingernails scratching the other side. The second sign that night, I locked my bedroom door. I told myself it was just my imagination, that I was tired, that it was just the shadows playing tricks on me. But at 3:12 a.m., I woke up not because of a noise, because of a smell, something rotting. I sat up, my stomach twisting. That's when I noticed my closet door. It was open. I never leave it open. I reached for my phone, my hands trembling, turning on the flashlight hand. That's when I saw them bangers, pale, too long, reaching out from inside the closet, and then they slid back into the wall. The last night he barely slept. After that, I should have left, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew it wasn't finished with me yet. The next night, I moved my bed away from the walls. I kept the lights on. I didn't blink at exactly 3:12 a.m. It started again. The scratching got soft at first, then harder, more frantic. I gripped my blanket, my entire body frozen. Then, the whisper, right next to my ear, "Let me out." I screamed. I ran from the room, down the stairs, into the basement, desperate to escape. But the moment I reached the bottom step, I stopped. The crack in the basement wall was wider now, and through it, I saw a face, my face smiling. I don't remember what happened next, just darkness. Now I don't live in the house anymore, but sometimes, late at night, I hear scratching in the walls of my apartment. It's closer now, and I know it's still trying to get out. My name is Eric. I never believed in ghosts. Not until I moved into this house. It wasn't anything special, just an old two-story house with a basement. The landlord had given me a good deal, almost too good. But I didn't ask questions. I should have. The first night, I heard scratching. It came from below. I was in bed, half asleep, when the sound woke me up. A soft, slow, dragging against the basement floor, like nails on concrete. I told myself it was mice, but when I went down the next morning, there were scratches on the walls, not like claw marks, more like words. Faint, scribbled letters, barely visible in the dim light. "Let me out." I told myself it had always been there, that I was just noticing it now. But that night, the scratching got louder, and this time, it was followed by whispers. I couldn't make out the words, just a voice, low and hoarse, speaking from the other side of the basement door. I didn't sleep. By the third night, the whispers turned into knocking, slow, rhythmic, deliberate, like something trapped. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, staring at the door. My hand hovered over the handle. Somewhere deep in my gut, I knew I shouldn't open it. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., the whispering stopped, and instead, I heard breathing right next to my ear. I spun around, my heart hammering. No one was there, but I could still feel it. The presence, the weight of something standing too close, just beyond my vision. I locked the basement door. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The man in the basement. Next morning, I went to work, trying to push everything out of my mind. When I came home, the house was too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't feel normal. The kind that feels watched. I stepped inside and froze. The basement door was open, wide open. My stomach turned to ice. There was no way. I locked it. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling. But before I could call anyone, I heard it. The sound of footsteps, slow, heavy steps. Coming from inside the basement, I backed away. Then a man walked out, except he wasn't really a man. His skin was gray, his eyes too wide, his mouth hanging slightly open, as if he was trying to speak, but had forgotten how. His clothes were old, faded, torn, like he had been wearing them for decades. But the worst part, he looked exactly like me, a perfect copy. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced, trying to understand what I was seeing. Then he smiled, and in my own voice, he whispered finally. Then he ran at me. I don't remember much after that, just the terror. The way my body refused to move, my brain screaming at me to react, to run. But I was frozen. The last thing I saw was his hands, reaching for me. Then, everything went black. The other side, I woke up in the basement. The air was damp, the floor cold beneath my hands. I scrambled up, my head pounding. The door to the house was closed. I rushed up the stairs and grabbed the handle. Locked, I banged against it, shouting, but then, I heard footsteps dot from the other side, and then, a voice, my voice dot soft, calm, don't bother. It's my house now. My blood ran cold. I slammed my fists against the door. Let me out. But he just chuckled. Then his footsteps retreated, and I was alone. For days. I screamed. I banged. I tried to break the door down, but no one came. No one ever came. And now I understand. I was never supposed to open the door. I was never supposed to let him out. Now I wait. I scratch at the walls. I whisper to the next person who moves in. And at night, I knock, 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 because one day, someone will open the door again, and I'll be free. My name is Adam. I never used the basement in my house. It was always cold, always damp, and something about it just felt off. But I never had a reason to go down there until the light started turning on by itself. At first I thought it was faulty wiring. Old houses did that sometimes. But when I checked the switch upstairs, it was always off. And yet, when I looked down the basement stairs, the light was on, faint, flickering, like someone was waiting down there. I told myself it was nothing. But every night, the light would turn on again. One night, I had enough. I grabbed a flashlight and stormed down the stairs, determined to prove to myself that it was just my imagination. But halfway down, the light switched off. The basement was suddenly pitch black. The air felt wrong, heavy, like something was in the dark with me. I turned on my flashlight and scanned the room. Nothing, just the old shelves, a broken chair, some dust-covered boxes. But as I turned to go back up, my flashlight flickered and, for half a second, I saw something, a figure, standing in the corner, facing the wall. My blood ran cold. I bolted up the stairs, slamming the door shut behind me. That night, I locked the basement and pushed a heavy chair in front of the door. I barely slept the next night at exactly 3 a.m. I woke up to a sound, scraping, a slow, deliberate dragging sound, coming from the basement. Then a single knock. I held my breath. Another knock. Then the basement light switched on. I grabbed a bat from under my bed and crept toward the basement door. Heart hammering, slowly, I reached for the doorknob. It was warm, like someone had been holding it from the other side. I yanked my hand away, breathing hard. Then I heard something I will never forget. A voice, low, scratched, not quite human. Come down, Adam. I ran. I spent the rest of the night in my car, parked down the street, shaking. The final night he called an electrician the next day, desperate for a logical explanation. But when he arrived, he gave me a confused look. There's no light down there, he said. I stared at him. What? He gestured toward the ceiling. No wiring, no bulb, no fixture. You don't have a basement light. I didn't argue. I didn't stay. I packed my bags and left that house forever. But sometimes, when I drive past it, I glance at the basement window, and every time the light is on. My name is Jason. I never liked the basement in my new house. Something about it felt wrong. It wasn't just the cold or the damp smell of old wood and concrete. It was the way the shadows seemed to linger just a second too long when I turned off the light. I told myself I was imagining it, until I found the door. It happened while I was clearing out old junk. I pushed a heavy shelf aside, and behind it, buried beneath years of dust and cobwebs, was a door I had never seen before. A door that shouldn't exist. It wasn't like the others in the house. It was old, the wood cracked and splintered like it had been forgotten for decades. There was no dust on the handle like it had been used recently. I hesitated. My house wasn't that old. There was no way I could have missed this door. I tried the handle. Locked. That should have been the end of it. But that night, as I lay in bed, something woke me. A knock from the basement. My blood ran cold. I sat up, heart pounding. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was just the house settling. Knock, slow, deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight and crept downstairs, my breath shaky. The basement was pitch black, except for the weak beam of my light. And then I saw it. The door was open. A thin sliver of darkness yawned behind it, too dark. My flashlight beam didn't penetrate it. It was like the doorway led to nothingness. Then, a hand reached out, pale, thin, too long. The fingers stretched toward me, slow, unnatural, like they had never moved before, like they had been waiting. I couldn't breathe. Then the fingers twitched. I ran. I bolted up the stairs, slammed the basement door shut, and locked it. My heart pounded in my chest as I pressed my back against the wood. Waiting. Silence, then knock. Knock, right on the other side. I had stayed there until sunrise. When I finally built up the courage to check again, the door was gone. The wall was solid brick, like it had never been there. But I know what I saw, and sometimes, late at night, I still hear it. Knock, waiting.